It is Thursday, December 22nd, and the Give and Go show is back in your life. My name is Griffin Queen. As always, I am joined by Matt Modi and Matt Ferentinos.
What up? What up?
Appreciate everybody tuning in right now. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you click that like button. Make sure you comment below which one of us you think looks best on video. If it's not me, I'm going to be very frustrated.
Then don't
Uh,
comment.
yeah, just don't comment. Don't comment if the answer is not me. I am going to use all my burners to respond to that question. And if you have not done so already, you're watching the show and you're enjoying it, or somebody sent this your way, or whatever it may be, make sure you click that subscribe button so you stay in the know whenever we drop a new episode. We do try and do this weekly, and we try and go around the league as often as we can. So we appreciate any and all support, and we're glad to have you here. Modi, Ferentinos, good to see you boys. Christmas week episode.
Yeah, it's
Christmas
good to
week,
have
yeah.
good to have the gang back together for the holidays.
Yeah. Happy Hanukkah to me, and I think me alone. Neither of you guys are
Not
parts.
Jewish,
No.
no.
Yep, not Jewish.
Not Jewish.
I know, Modi, you went to
I mean, it's a
Catholic school, so I assume that you were not.
Yeah.
But
Also
I
not
also went to
Catholic.
Catholic school, and I am Jewish.
I'm from
Yeah, and I'm
Montgomery
also not
County,
Catholic.
so
Yeah, yeah. You're also not Catholic. That's fair. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
most of the kids that go to Catholic school probably not Catholic.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's get into it. We have a lot to talk about. Before the show got started, I was ranting a lot of frustration and anger in my voice about this potential trade between the Suns and the Wizards that
wait,
apparently
breaking
the
news.
Suns turned
Breaking
down.
news. We gotta get a drop for this. Breaking news drop.
Breaking news. Let's do it.
I feel like this is huge. Suns reject a trade. The Wizards offer Rui Hachimura and a pick for Jay Crowder. Suns' reasons for turning down pick: they wanted a survival starter.
I'm gonna. This is gonna be the third time in 10 minutes that I get angry about this, but it's just so easy for me to be angry about. I fundamentally do not understand what the Wizards front office thinks they're fucking doing if they're offering a young player who, granted, they have not given an extension to, and a pick for a guy that you specifically try and trade to a playoff team, and not just a guy who, like, on a general level, you trade to a playoff team, a guy who is sitting out from playing on the Suns because he specifically wants to be traded to a different contender. He's a 3-and-D player who does exactly what a contender needs. And the Wizards, who are 10 games below 500 and just came off a 10-game losing streak, are trying to trade a young player who doesn't cost that much money and a fucking pick for this guy. What's the goal here? Please, one of you, both of you, anyone, comment below and tell me. What is the goal if you're the Wizards front? Because this isn't even like playing for the 8 seed. This is playing for a fucking 12 seed at this point. And that's not a play-in team. I don't understand.
Well,
you know
the
where I
problem
could
is,
see. Yeah, there you go. You could start, Modi.
well, no, the problem is they don't think that they're a 12 seed. They think that they're a 10. They think that they're a 10 seed. They're only 2 games out.
Playing.
Yeah, they think they're a play-in team. Exactly. That's what they're doing. It came down from management that they want to make the play-in. That's literally what it comes down to. Because last time they won 2 games, they got the 8 seed, and then they made money off of 2 extra games for ticket sales. And then they're like,
Wizards
how
management-
secretly incredible is playoff money? Like,
I
I've
was just
seen
gonna
what
say-
the reported payouts are for playoff money based on each round. It's not that good. Like, it's if you're in the playoffs for a long time, if you're, the Cavs from 2015 to
Or
2018,
the Warriors.
or the Warriors or something like that, yeah, you're fucking raking it in because you have superstars and you're going deep. If you're the Wizards and you can't even sell out a playoff game and your number one, like, best player is Bradley fucking Beal, no one gives a shit about your playoff games. Like, what are we doing here?
I actually have a serious question. So when the Wizards were making that run 2 years, I mean, the run in quotations with Russell Westbrook, did you not get into that? Because the other Wizards fan that I know in my life, I think there's only 2 in existence. He loved it. He was like, I know we're going to get demolished in the first round of the playoffs. He loved it. He thought it was fun.
No, I didn't get into it because we started off, and I hate to say that because, like, I genuinely am somebody that still likes watching Russell Westbrook play basketball. And at that point, I liked watching him play basketball. At that point, I liked watching Bradley Beal play basketball. Prior to that season, I didn't have high hopes of, like, being like a 6 seed or anything like that. But I was like, we could be like a 7 or 8 seed. Like, we could be a 45 win team. They were bad half that year. And then they really, put on the burners, and Russ dragged them to a play-in game, and they got demolished. They got demolished in the playoffs, and they should have been, because they were a bad team. They were constructed poorly. So I didn't get that excited for it because I was like, okay, great. I get to look forward to getting demolished in the first round. Like, that's the absolute potential highlight of this team, and then they're probably going to trade somebody that I like, which I guess ended up being Westbrook, but that was
like
good for me because we got Kuzma.
small market teams can like root for a run or root for getting like a Zion, LeBron, like one of those guys to change their franchise all around. But like the Pacers have been like kind of a team that has a similar ceiling, but I feel like is looked at differently than the Wizards. Because I kind of thought those Russ years were pretty exciting. Like he brought a different energy to that team. Bradley Beal didn't have to be the guy; he could just strictly score. They had a lot of like they were run and gun because Russ was pushing the pace, and it was really before the wheels kind of fell off for him. But I mean, I kind of understand. I feel like the play-in game was like the greatest thing. Wizards management was like, "Oh man, now all we have to do is make the 10 seed. Let's go!" Like
if
our
they
job's
were
got
having
that much easier.
if they were having like the season, like in terms of win total and all that like the 2017 Thunder did, where you were expecting them to be at best like a 38-40 win team, and then Russ drags them to like the 5th seed and like whatever it was, 45, 47 wins, whatever it may have been. I would have gotten pumped for that because there would have been something at the beginning of the season to get pumped for. But instead, it was just getting blown out every fucking night. And the games that we were winning, we were winning, like 130 to 124, which is just not sustainable basketball. Shout out Vino in the background on my screen right now.
Vino
hanging out with me for once. He knows that I'm clearly emotional right now. Like there's no way to create like a sustainable, cohesive unit on the Wizards because every single move they make is in the hopes of creating at one point an 8 seed and now creating a 10 seed. And like, how is like they're the literal joke of the league. They're worse than the Kings. They're worse than the Magic. They're worse.
I mean, the Kings
are
great right now. Like
right, Sabonis... but the Kings had 20 years where they were awful.
Yeah.
But at least prior to those 20 years, at least in the early 2000s, they were going to the Western Conference Finals. And you could argue that they should have gone to the finals.
Yeah, because the refs wanted the Lakers.
The refs, yeah.
And
in the Robert Horry shot.
Well, 30,000 we say the refs. Vegas wanted the Lakers. Like the refs were paid to get the Lakers into the finals.
Deep state.
The NBA wanted.
Yeah. Biden's America.
Yeah,
to lighten the mood a bit, before we get on to more depressing basketball, because we'll talk Lakers. Moda, you watched any anime lately? I've been watching My Hero. It's great.
I've been reading. I've been trucking through One Piece.
Hey, hell yeah!
I've gotten pretty far. I'm at
what chapter are you on now?
Chapter like 800 something.
Damn.
They go by pretty quick. Yeah, but I mean,
they're like 14 pages towards the end, I feel like, or like 17, 18 pages. So those do go through pretty quick.
And some of them are like, and not a lot of it's actually text heavy. Like a lot of it, like it's just battle animations, like pow, bam, and then you're like,
yeah.
But it's.
I wish I watched it more, but I definitely
do
just flick through so fast. Yeah.
But it's amazing. I mean, I'm into it. I think it's amazing. I think it's a great story. But I haven't watched anything. I've just been reading.
That's something that I actually struggle with a little bit when I read manga and comic books because I'm so like dialogue focused and I'm so like I care so much about the text. Like I'll obviously pay attention to the images, but I'm not sitting there like poring over every single page. So when I hear somebody, they buy like a 24-page American comic book and they say it takes them like 30 minutes to read it. I'm like, what? How is that physically possible? Like this took me 4.5 minutes to read this.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I don't look at
they're like, obviously spending a little bit more time with the images. I imagine their imagination's a little bit better than mine, where they're actually like playing these things out in their head. Whereas I'm kind of just like panel to panel. Let's go.
I will say some of the more recent Hunter x Hunter chapters, and just typically a lot of Hunter x Hunter chapters can take a while because like there's very text heavy, just the way that they explain it. And if you watch the anime, like they take a lot of time explaining like kind of what's going on. And there are definitely some times where I'm like, I don't feel like reading, so I'm gonna not read Hunter x Hunter right now.
Go read some like 70s Marvel comics. Like some of the early runs with their early writers.
I used to read the old Spider-Man comics.
Fucking dense with the amount of words.
Really? I thought it was gonna be the opposite.
Incredible. Yeah. It's a lot of it's like wasted. A lot of it's like wasted dialogue. They're making things longer than they need to be so that they can basically not have like super large, like very active imaging, because just that's the way that the industry was at the time. But Stan Lee in particular is like the most text heavy writer I've ever seen in my life. Like everything has to be so adjective heavy that it's. I mean, it's like look at the titles of everything.
The Amazing
Spectacular
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man, The Amazing
Yeah.
Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Everything is adjective, noun. It's crazy.
Yeah, I didn't know that. Yeah, it was hard for me at first to get into it, because like the battle scenes, I had no idea what's going on. Like I couldn't follow the actual
Because
fight scenes.
it being in black and white can make it tough. Like that's why if you do end up reading Demon Slayer, which I know like people watch because of the animation, but like the final arc is all in color online,
Oh,
and that's
nice.
like
That's
really
cool.
cool
For
to
some
watch.
people.
To read, huh?
I said for some people.
Well, like it's like one of those things where 99% of people like it, but Griffin doesn't for some reason. Which I guess is like me. I just saw Avatar 2. I will
What do
say.
you mean Griffin doesn't for some reason? I'm colorblind. What do you mean for some
For
reason?
some reason that we just simply don't know.
I don't have cones in my eyes.
You can like see some colors, right?
I can see red. That's it. I mean, I guess I could see like shades of pink and shades of oranges, but like that's
Yeah.
not a broad range.
It's very specific color.
Yeah.
How was Avatar? I haven't seen it yet.
I mean, I guess just get ready for like a long ass movie. I saw teenagers hitting their dab pen halfway through when I went to go pee, and it makes sense because they were like, and I
3
mean, I
hours
joined
and
them. I was like, oh, that's
20
chill in the
minutes?
theater, like, because it was like, I mean,
It's over 3
I got
hours.
It's close to 4
Yeah.
hours.
Yeah.
I got in at 9 p.m. and like I think that's around when like the trailer started. So I'd say like maybe 15, 20 minutes later, but then I left at like 12:40.
I
It was
You
I
saw it at 9
Yeah,
p.m.?
yeah. You were
Jeez.
texting the group.
I went to
chat
the
late at
3D
night.
movie because the 3D was cool. I'm just like, I guess when 3D movies used to be a thing, like they used to like purposely kind of do stuff. Like this
Yeah.
wasn't clearly shot in 3D. And what I was saying is like in 2008, when the first Avatar came out, yeah, that shit was wild. But like I saw Endgame in theaters. Like there's been a lot of stuff that's happened since fucking high school. I'm fucking 30 years old. Like
Yeah, it's crazy.
it's not like that much crazier of an experience, which I feel like was kind of the selling point for Avatar the first time around. And then I don't know, I just because of my the things that get recommended to me online, like I saw like, oh, Avatar racist or whatever. In my head, I was just like, yeah, I could see how
Not the
they did
direction I
this.
thought you were
Like-
going. I thought you were going to say like Avatar, like
No.
full penetration. Real quick, I saw an interview link. I didn't read or watch the interview, but I saw like it was the headline. It was like James Cameron for one of the future Avatar movies wants to redefine the way that we watch movies. So he wants to do a 2.5-hour theatrical cut that is in theaters, and he wants to do a 6-hour streaming cut. So one that's like it's still
So,
the
like-
same plot points, but like way more expanded, a lot more like side character stuff. Basically, like all the additional chaff that an editing room would normally cut out, you just leave it all in there. You turn it into like kind of like Zack Snyder's Justice League,
That's
whatever.
That's
the
exactly
fuck,
what I was going to say. Yeah.
where they even said like break it into these parts, and this is the best way to watch it. And I told Julia that when we were like standing somewhere the other night, and she goes, "Oh my God, how are we going to watch something for 6 hours straight?" And I was like, no, what?
We're
It's gonna
not.
be streaming. And she was like, yeah, so we're gonna have to sit there for 6. I'm like, no, just think of it as like 6 1-hour episodes. Do we
Yeah.
ever sit there for 6 1-hour episodes and not get up? And I thought I was having, I was gonna have like a conniption. I thought I was losing my mind. Maybe I wasn't explaining it well or something like that, but I was directly reading what was on my phone, and we were just not aligned on what we were talking about.
No, I literally saw 3 movies last night. Like I knew when they were like the arc was changing, and I was like, oh man, like I really hope this is like a quick Rocky montage. And it's like, no, that we're going through everything. But I mean, it was good. I could see why like most people will like it and why it's getting like acclaim. I just Griffin's seen some
getting
movies
surprisingly
with me.
positive reviews. Like
Yeah.
I didn't think it was going to get positive reviews. I want to see it. I'm seeing it on Christmas. I didn't think it was going to get good reviews, and I think it's getting better reviews than the first one.
Good
Really?
movie to see
Well-
on Christmas, so you don't have to talk to your family for 3 hours, so 3.5 hours.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't going to anyways. But yeah, I'm not traveling home for it this year. I mean, I'll go see it at night, and I'm sure Julia will fall asleep in the theater, but that'll be okay.
Oh yeah, great napping movie. I took like a 20-minute nap somewhere.
Then I just don't think you can have an opinion on the movie. I feel like that's an insane thing to say.
No, I mean,
Uh,
you'll just see. There's a lot of whale stuff in there.
A lot of whale stuff.
You'll know what I'm talking about next podcast.
I don't like the way you phrase that.
have,
Modai, I know we're talking about Avatar a lot. There was something that you wanted to ask before we really jumped into the basketball stuff.
Yeah, we can save it. It's not that important. We can save it for next week.
I want to be clear. You said I have a question to start. Very important.
Yeah, that was tongue in cheek. Very important. It's a very
Got
important
it.
question. It's not a very timely question.
Sure. Okay. If it's not timely, then we'll save it for next time.
Yeah,
And I'm going to spend the next week being like, he said very important.
he
Kind
did
of
say
deceitful.
important.
All right, yeah, let's get into NBA stuff. I know we've got a bunch of stuff that we want to talk about. We already talked about the Wizards a little bit.
Yeah.
We might talk about them a little bit more just in terms of potential trades or potential teams that should blow it up. But I know, Modai, you had some stuff that you wanted to talk about in terms of like advanced analytics.
Yeah, well, I think you saw this on Twitter. I'm curious, like, if you guys have like any thoughts on it, but like, I don't understand the NBA media, like the need to just like hype up Jokic advanced stats whenever talking about Jokic. Like, you can't just say he's averaging 25, 11, and 9, and they're the one seed in the West. You have to say he's leading in VORP. And if I hear Zach Lowe say VORPs and Schnorps one more time, I think my head might actually explode. And I just don't understand like why we feel the need, not we, like, you know what I mean, to just like go on about the advanced stats. Like, oh, he's actually really good on defense because he like gets a lot of steals for a big man, and that's really valuable. It's like he's an incredible player. Like, we're not talking about like LeBron had amazing advanced stats, but we're not saying like, well, you know, if you look at Braun's Raptor rating, he's actually even better than we think.
Sure.
Yeah.
There's a literal, we talked about this in one of the early episodes. There's a literal
Stat
stat
for
rating
LeBron.
called LeBron.
Yeah.
Because he was used as the baseline for it. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, and I disagree with you. I think part of it comes from, you know, the 21st century obsession with analytics in sports
Nerds.
in general. I think Moneyball, not the movie, but I mean, to a degree, the book, and just the actual event in baseball shifted the way that we talk about baseball. And then I think that happened, you know, a little bit later in basketball. Obviously, then we had the play
Morey.
on that with Morey ball. And just the way that certain teams are building their rosters. These guys think that they're smarter than the sport when it really comes down to it. And I don't mean to say that in like a disrespectful way, but I think that there is a general desire from some of the newer writers and media in basketball media and sports media in general to try and make basketball a solved game in the way that baseball is a little bit a solved game, and the way that like chess is a solved game, where everything can be analyzed and anything can be put on a stat sheet, and you can find the value of anything at any given time. And that value is quantitative and qualitative and always makes sense. And that's just not how basketball is. Like there is value to counting stats. There is value to what you see on the court outside of what these stats say about them. Look at Jokic's defensive advanced metrics. They don't make sense.
He's not a good defender. You don't need to.
He's not.
And that's fine. Like, it doesn't. Like, Jokic is amazing. Like, you could win a championship with Jokic. He's not like a liability on defense that you can't win with. Like, that's not what I'm saying. It's just like, I don't get why the argument has to be framed around the advanced stats when he's an incredible player. It's not like we're trying to make the case for someone to be better than he actually is. Like, he's amazing.
Yeah, like he doesn't need any more arguments for why he's good. And especially right now, like the Nuggets are the one seed. So that's the whole art. It's like, okay, if he can do this and be the one seed, and it's all this like, there's going to be MVP talk after every game. Now we're seeing more like Kevin Durant MVP talk where like, where is Ja gone? Like, you just, you know, there's like a lot of players that were up there that just aren't talked about anymore. And dudes like Giannis, who probably should be talked about more because he consistently dominates, but it's like fatigue there. And I think like Jokic, just for whatever, it's like, oh, he can't win 3 in a row, but look at all these crazy stats. And
yeah, like
I think more like the advanced metrics are trying to put into a number what the eye test is. Like, if you've never watched a basketball game, but you just see like points, assists, rebounds, like you're like, okay, this, but some stats are misleading. Like, it doesn't always say like what you see. So I feel like that's like really what it is like the laziest form in statistical analysis to like find a new metric to be like, does he pass the eye test? Because like a lot of what, you know, even players like, I'll say, I don't want to use like, I guess I'll use it like Ben Simmons as an example, who hasn't been lighting up the stat sheet, will do things on offense where it's like, if he gets a hockey assist, that's not an assist, but like that could go into plus minus. That can go into like, I think plus minus is probably my favorite like quote
over the
unquote
course of time.
and
Yeah.
like just because I think that really is the best indicator. Does your
It's
team
a
do better when
large
you're on the
sample
court?
size statistic. I mean, it's not even a
Yeah.
statistic, it's a large sample size counting metric.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only
I mean,
thing is like,
look at not to diminish his MVP campaign, because I think that he deserved the MVP the year that he won it. At worst, he deserved second place. But look at Russell Westbrook's 2017 MVP campaign.
if he averaged 9.9 rebounds or assists, he doesn't win.
It should have been Harden. Yeah.
It should have been Harden.
Also, look at the fact that he averaged more rebounds per game than Steven Adams. And so a casual fan is going to look at his counting stats for that and say Russell Westbrook is a more effective, better rebounder than Steven Adams. And objectively, no, he's not. It's just that he's getting a lot. Like Steven Adams is making it easier for him to get.
He's tipping the ball
rebounds
out or boxing out for Russ to then get the
he's
ball.
doing things that allow him to get those rebounds. So I understand in that respect, like if there's a way to create a metric, an advanced metric that analyzes things like that, like box outs, like screen assists, like things that you don't necessarily see on the stat sheet that make other players better. But at the same time, it's like counting stat, like basic counting stats all the way up to advanced stats. At the end of the day, the eye test is the most important metric. Whether or not a guy is on the floor and helps his team win games. That's the biggest thing.
And I don't mean to sound like I think like the more that numbers become part of the game, I think is generally better. Like I'm definitely pro analytics and pro stats. So I don't mean to
there's
sound
more people watching and like trying to use whatever.
Yeah. I don't mean to sound like a caveman, like that, like, no, numbers equals bad. But I just think it's like, and I think it makes more sense with like role players. Like, no,
Mickey's got the eye for the game. He knows.
Yeah.
Scout culture. Like how much scout culture changed when analytics changed.
Yeah. And I personally think advanced stats like make a lot more sense for like role players and stuff where you're like, no, this guy's actually incredibly valuable. Like the Steven Adams point, like he's actually clearing the way to make rebounds a lot easier to come through.
Yeah.
But when it comes to like the best of the best, to me, like the counting stats are the most important thing. And Jokic had those. So like wasn't, I just don't know. It's like we needed to prop up his advanced stats to say how good he was.
And even just using his assist numbers as a center would be impressive enough.
Exactly.
Like even that should just be highlighted. Like you don't need advanced stats to be like, the dude has, I think I just saw a stat because he right now has 9 assists per game, which would be the most all time. I think Wilt Chamberlain has like 8.3, but then the other
if
two
there's a center
seasons
stat
are
that's
Jokic.
crazy, Wilt's got it.
I was going to say,
like, so Wilt 8.6 and then Jokic 8.3, Jokic 7.9. So he literally has 5 of the top 10 assist seasons as a center. Like it's not advanced to know that. Like
but
is
at
that
the same
dominant.
time, you also there is an element of just stats in general that if it like, and you see this so much on like Reddit and on Twitter of people that don't actually watch the sport, and it's any kind of sport where they talk about the sport, they like the drama of the sport, they like the stats of the sport, they like the players, but they don't actually watch the games. There's a complete lack of context given to these stats unless you're using them on like usage adjusted ways or like per 36 or adjusted based on year or something like that. Where somebody in one of my group chats today, and I'm not calling them out in a negative way because he was making fun of this statement, but he shared a StatMuse thing, which is such an annoying account of 2 players that by their 5th season had averaged 32.5 points per game, 8 rebounds per game, 8 assists per game. Do you have an idea who those 2 players might be off the top of your head?
So wait, 32, 8 and 8 by their 5th season?
Yep. In their 5th season, they averaged those numbers.
I'm guessing Luka or Giannis.
Luka's one of them. Other one is 25 years ago.
Oh.
20 years ago, 25 years ago.
Kevin Garnett.
Starts with an M.
Michael Jordan.
Michael Jordan.
The
point of the comparison was to show that Luka Doncic in his 5th season is averaging the same things that Michael Jordan did in his 5th season. And
so
that's
basically
a fucking
Michael
stupid
Jordan.
comparison.
Yeah.
Because counting stats are highly inflated compared to the late 80s and early 90s. So you post shit like that and people retweet it and people reply to it and they think that this means that Luka Doncic is fucking the reincarnated Michael Jordan. Granted, he's not dead, but
there's no like
there's
inflation.
A complete lack of context acknowledged when we talk about stats now because guys are putting up stats that did not exist 20, 30 years ago. There was a period from the late 70s until the mid 2000s where shit was super depressed. And it doesn't mean the players were bad. It doesn't mean that offense was awful. It meant that offense was played differently. Defense was played differently. Things were called differently. And statisticians and record keepers weren't giving you an assist for every fucking dribble handoff that then a guy dribbles 5 times out of before hitting a mid-range jumper. Like, the rules have changed for what constitutes an assist, what constitutes a rebound, what constitutes like a good shot. And we don't talk about that shit.
Yeah. And I think the frustrating thing is how easy you can manipulate stats. Like, people love to say, like, this is for football, but like teams that run the ball X amount of times, like, win X percentage of the games. Well, it's like one is not a cause of the other. You know what teams do when they're winning? They run the ball.
Run the ball to run out the clock.
Yeah.
It's like, it doesn't, it's like, I hate some of like the way you can like manipulate it to make whatever argument you want.
Part of it's also Madden mentality. It's I'm up in Madden, I'm going to keep throwing the ball because I'm going to complete more passes than I'm going to not complete. I'm not going to throw that many picks or whatever. Like, I can just keep doing this the rest of the game.
I'm going to throw on.
And that's not how actual human beings work.
Yeah.
Guys get tired, defenses let up, offensive lines get beat up. Like, things change over the course of the game.
Yeah. And we talked about this in our group chat, but like the NBA 2K of like, well, like, player dynamic and like what people actually want and the human dynamic of things don't matter. Like we talked about, like, in reference to KFC, just like blow it up. Or like, well, why can't Russell Westbrook simply just play like Steph Curry?
Yeah. Why doesn't so-and-so star point guard that's been a star point guard since they were 8 years old just play off ball more often?
Yeah, just be different.
And why don't they just switch on to a 3 or a 4 defensively and defend them? And it's like, they physically are incapable of that. That's not how they've been wired for 2+ decades.
Speaking of that, Trae Young is a guard that doesn't really play off ball that might find a new home soon.
Yeah, a guy that everyone said could play off ball just because of his ability to like be a shooter and take catch and shoot threes. But Trae Young has proven over his career that he needs the ball in his hands. It doesn't work otherwise.
Yeah, I do think that, like, well, part of that's like, well, why not? Like, why can't he just like I'm not saying he needs to turn into like, a 3 and D player. Well, not the D part's never gonna happen, but
it
like,
just seems like effort though. Like, you can't cut.
That's my thing.
Part of it's definitely mentality and a choice on his basis. Part of it is also like that would require, to a large extent, a reshaping of his game that is going to take multiple years. So he might be trying to do that right now during like off-season workouts, but these guys like don't practice during the season, so you're not going to see results in season.
And you always revert back to like what's natural. So I get that. Anyways, sorry, Ferentinos, go ahead.
No, it's like maybe like just because he's not as much of a catch and shoot shooter. Like, I feel like Steph like practiced that so much. Like, if anything, I feel like creating Steph's own 3 or just, he always was creating it, but to have the green light to take those threes when people would take that normally as a mid-range shot was what we had to work on. But I'm kind of with you where it's like, whenever I hear it's like a player can't play off ball, I'm just like, that player is a shitty teammate and just doesn't want to win, because you set screens and you cut to the hoop. Like, those are things that every player who's played organized basketball their entire lives know how to do. And you'll get rewarded. Like it's something where it helps everybody. Like, literally the give and go.
There we go.
Referencing, it's literally the easiest play in basketball, and it's what they teach you when they try to teach you like passing the ball is more successful to team play than taking it on by yourself. Like, that is the reality of the sport.
There are absolutely aspects of playing off ball that I agree fully with you guys on, that like you can learn you don't even need to necessarily learn how to do it. It's knowing your scheme and knowing who you got to switch on to, and setting screens for your guys and all that. Those parts are effort parts. And so when I see a Russell Westbrook or a James Harden or a Trae Young or whoever not do that stuff,
it's just like if James Harden is standing in the corner, it's like, okay, you're not doing anything.
That's stupid. Yeah. But if the argument is, if Trae Young let DeJounte Murray have the ball more often and curled off of screens so that Murray could get him the ball for a catch and shoot situation, okay, but what if he's not good on the catch and shoot? Like, you're expecting his averages to just be better because it's quote unquote a better shot. But if he's spent at this point 15, 20 years putting the ball on the ground before he shoots it, his muscle memory is going to, like, you're asking him to be Klay Thompson when he's closer to Steph Curry, and it just doesn't make sense.
That's what I was saying is that like, yeah, Steph can also do that though, which is why he's
I
just
mean,
an incredible
that's why he's
player.
one of the best of all time.
Yeah.
We
but I
don't
do-
ask we don't ask Clay to put the ball on the court. It's
No,
like nobody
yeah.
asks these 3-and-D guys to be incredible ball handlers. It's always you want the incredible ball handlers to do everything else. There's a limit on the amount of different things that you're going to get better at over the course of your career, and there's physical limitation.
Well, especially playing at the level they're playing too. It's like you need
Yeah.
to be the best in the world at what you're doing in order to, or you have to make 30% of your threes catch and shoot to be able to do that, playing against like the best players in the world.
It would likely do a disservice to Clay's shooting if he had to spend more time on dribbling drills and more time, passing out of double teams and things like that. Like he could dedicate time to that. I mean, particularly when he was in like his athletic prime. At this point, he's a kind of fixed player. But would that have been the best usage of his time, or was being literally the best 3-and-D player in the league a better use of his time?
Yeah, I think it's all like dependent on team dynamic. Like if Clay went to a team that didn't have a point guard, then maybe he wouldn't be Clay because he would have had to develop those skills, and his 3-and-D part would have suffered. But like the difference is he like Clay. It's not for the betterment of the team if he tries to dribble. Like, no, actually, I'm going to be the guy now. It's like Jeremy Grant. Like Jeremy Grant wanted to be the guy.
Sure.
In Detroit, was good for a little bit, and then was like, actually, this shit sucks. This is hard. I'm going back to being a 3-and-D guy.
Yeah, if you're already getting paid big money and you know that big money's still coming down the pipeline for you, and you have an option to be a third option, like me personally, I'd take it. But
yeah,
that seems like a much easier job, and like the media is not going to fucking tear you apart every single night.
yeah.
But I'm also not as driven as one of the 450 best basketball players on earth, so I understand why a lot of these guys do want to be like on ball primary ball handler kind of guys.
Yeah, it's what they're used to. It's what they're good at. And a lot of it is ego. Like I think that's what makes Steph so impressive is the understanding that like, oh, if I can give it up and I'll get it back. Or like even if I don't, like if 3 guys run off to Steph and they score because of it, like that's valuable, even though it doesn't get attributed to him in any way.
The gravity.
Exactly. Yeah.
To get back to like a stat that you can't really
Gravity.
create gravity. Absolutely. Whether it's somebody sucking people out past the 3-point line, like Steph may do, or LeBron dragging a bunch of people, or Giannis or somebody like that, dragging everybody towards the hoop and having 4 open guys on the corners. Like, how do you provide data on that without actually watching the game and watching how different quote unquote gravity would be for those different players?
I forget when and who, so this is going to be really helpful, but someone tried to do that. Someone tried to quantify gravity. I think it was a Sixers writer specifically
Isaac
with
Newton.
him.
Okay.
Yeah. Someone tried to do, I think it was a Sixers writer tried to do it with Embiid, like tried to come up with some sort of way to measure the gravity that he like.
And then the anti with Simmons.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's some like MIT statistician who's super into basketball who is doing shit like that. And they probably work, like people talk all the time about like the models that we have access to, even all the way up to like Second Spectrum or something like that.
Yeah.
And then they talk about the models that teams have access to and how they're like so far beyond anything the public can consume.
Yeah.
If somebody actually developed that, they're probably working for a team.
Yeah, Maury probably has some, like I can't imagine Maury like
I imagine they figured out how to quantify a lot of this shit, but once it gets out there, then it's public knowledge. Anybody can use that information. Hold on to it as long as you can.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So, all right, that's advanced stats. What else you guys want to talk about?
That's nerd talk. Well, I'm curious.
This whole basketball podcast is nerd talk. We're nerds about this fucking.
It's either
sport.
nerd basketball stuff or it's nerd anime stuff
or just nerd shit.
Yeah, when Ferentinos, we did it was just a Matt episode, the Matt and the Better Matt. It was in the midst of 80s insane run, and we were like, oh, we'll save like the Lakers talk for when Griffin's back.
Oh, no.
Obviously, things have changed since then.
I think they changed like 2 days later. They changed.
Yeah, I think you can directly blame us for the fact that
I do.
Yeah, as you should. So I guess my question to you is like, what do they do differently now? Like, well, do they proceed differently now with the injury? Like with those 2 picks, like how are things going to go down now? Like if DeRozan, let's say, is on the table,
are they buyers?
Yeah.
If DeRozan is the guy that you're talking about buying, you absolutely shouldn't be. Honestly, I know he's maybe not as good. I think I'd rather go for Zach LaVine than DeRozan just because of the age
Zach
concerns.
LaVine also doesn't want to be on the Bulls.
Yeah.
So.
Right, and people are shopping him. People always shop them to the Lakers or the Heat or the Knicks. Like it's always the same teams, right?
LeBron and LaVine would be something though.
And LaVine, you know, he's a LA guy. He went to UCLA. Like he and Westbrook would be UCLA.
He doesn't like the
teammates.
cold in Chicago.
He famously said "fuck me" when the Timberwolves drafted him.
Did he?
Do you remember that? Like, I mean, it's like it's lip reading.
Wait,
but like,
wait. I think I do. When he's standing up with his.
He's putting the hat on. He's like, "Fuck me."
Yeah. I
mean,
which
listen,
makes so much sense.
If
I wish
was in
more
Minnesota-
players would be honest. Like,
I know.
Fuck.
I was when
The
when they
Detroit
traded him-
Lions. Shit.
when they traded him to make the Jimmy Butler stuff work, I was so frustrated that it was him and not Wiggins. And obviously, like Wiggins has become a better player since then. But it was just like we saw what Wiggins was, and he was essentially a fixed point. He was going to give you the same thing every single night for the rest of his career, unless he was on a genuine contender. LaVine had so much more growth potential, and it was just such. I think maybe that's also how Lauri Markkanen ended up on the Bulls or something
it
like
is,
that.
yeah.
Yeah. So there was like, granted, again, these guys would develop differently, but I was so upset that they moved LaVine because I thought he had the most quote unquote star potential on that team.
Yeah, but I'm
That being
worried
said-
about his knees. Like he's younger, but his knees have just not like he tore his ACL however long ago that was, but he's had nagging like last year.
He's got the Derrick Rose a little bit in him where he's a little
Yeah.
bit too explosive for his own good. And he's like,
Yeah.
he doesn't dunk the way he used to. But when you see him like take guys off the dribble and shit, like he's moving at 2 times speed. And
Yeah.
it's like and then he gets hurt. He gets hurt 30 games into the season every year.
Yeah. I mean, he's turned himself into like an incredible shooter, so he doesn't need to rely on his athleticism as much. But that would be my worry with LaVine is they invested so much money into him. And I mean, what's he going to look like in 3 years?
Yeah. Point being on the Lakers, if I'm them, I stand pat. Like I don't keep trying to do things with the Pacers because I don't think the Pacers are trying to blow it up the way that everybody thought they were before the season.
Not
Yeah.
now.
I don't think Utah wants more picks. I don't think OKC wants more picks. Like everybody that would potentially be a good trade partner for them.
Do you want
already
your
is good. Like, they're good.
2029 first
Yeah,
round
like
or whatever?
they're
Like-
already set up for success. And at that point, they're just acquiring picks to flip later when those are the years where they're planning on contending and they already have additional picks in those years. It's just it feels to me like the Lakers need to just figure it out with this current unit. You know, if that means waiving some guys and taking the hit financially and just trying to like pick up other guys, maybe bring guys up from the G League. Like this team is not a contender. Let's call it what it is.
Just develop guys.
Develop some guys so that in the post LeBron years, if AD is still on the team, you have people that you can surround AD with, and there's no 4-year stretch of winning 20 games like they did during the end of the Kobe era. Like,
Yeah.
you can't go through that again if you're the Lakers. The
say,
fan base will not allow it.
I know it won't happen. And if you had to pick one of the guys, like with LeBron or AD, I honestly think if you like try to cash in on
trade?
one of those guys to trade them,
I would
like,
trade LeBron James.
I think, but LeBron plus what you could get for AD, ironically, that's what won him the title, but like, or like AD plus whatever you could get for LeBron, I think would set the Lakers up better than where they are now, which is basically like playing out LeBron's years till wherever Bronny Jr. gets drafted. And then AD, like, if he's hurt, they don't have the roster to stay afloat. Like, they just don't. Like,
They should
so
trade
it's
LeBron,
tough.
just send him back to the Heat.
I think teams would be even all other things being equal, even if say AD was healthy, I think teams would still be more likely to trade for LeBron because of all the other extra revenue it generates. Outside of team building, outside of winning titles, outside of going to the playoffs, if LeBron James is on your team, you are going to be one of the most profitable franchises in the league, and an owner is going to push their GM to do something like that if the offer's on the table. Granted,
Yeah.
it's LeBron, so LeBron can say no to essentially any team if he doesn't want to go there. But
Yeah.
if the Wizards called tomorrow and they were like, we'll give you Bradley Beal and a couple young players and like a pick for LeBron James, and LeBron James is okay with it, that trade happens because the Lakers are going to make money no matter what. but that would be the most profitable thing the Wizards have done since they signed Michael Jordan.
Oh man, that's a win-win for you all
Yeah, there you
around.
go.
That'd be.
Is it?
Do you think LeBron
Is it a
would-
win-win for me?
Do you think LeBron would want to do that? Do you think he'd want to do the Jordan thing and be like, I'm gonna go to DC and actually carry them to like a respectable?
No,
I mean,
No, I don't.
no.
I don't even think LeBron.
Jordan's reasons for doing it
This is
were
for ownership.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he had a handshake deal that he was going to become the majority owner when
And
he got
then-
done with it, and essentially he was boosting the value of his future
team by
investment,
being
and
on
then
it. Yeah.
the Wizards reneged on it because they're a cocksucker organization.
And the Wizards are 12th and the Hornets are 14th overall
Yeah.
right now.
I mean, look, I'm not saying he would have been a good owner in Washington,
No,
but
It's
it also
like,
probably would have brought a little bit more attention to the Wizards for at least his early years in a positive way, where like
which could
people
lead
would have
to
gotten
coaches
reinvested in
wanting to be
basketball.
there, assistant coaches wanting to be there, just like making it at least a destination city, I think would be good because then the players want to play there. And like, yeah, like I think
Which I
Jordan,
do think is easier for DC than it is for Charlotte.
yeah.
Like not to dog on Charlotte in any way, but DC, historically black city, seat of the federal government, like a place where if you are an athlete who's like made a shit ton of money or you're a coach who's made a shit-
billionaire. Yeah.
if you have the opportunity to build money and power, it's a good place to do it. It's part of how they tried to get what's his name from the Raptors.
LeBron's Illuminati buddies are in DC.
Kawhi?
No, Masai. That part of their selling point to Masai was that if he came to DC,
I forgot about
would
that.
literally be able to like entrench his nonprofit and the organizations he worked with, and like he'd be so much more engaged in the things that are making him like dumb money and also building a better community for people that he's trying to support. Like that is a selling point for DC, and our ownership group does not take advantage of that at all.
Yeah, I think the problem is it's not like it's a great city. It's not a great sports city. Like the actual
No.
sports town itself, like the Nats and the Caps, I think have a more hardcore fan base than the Wizards. And then the
And
Commanders.
most of those people come in from the suburbs because
Yeah.
it's like DC as itself as a sports city is fine, but it's the DMV as a whole that kind of leads into it. And you're not going to travel in from Shady Grove Metro or from, Howard County or something like that to go to a Wizards game when they lose 60 games a year.
Yeah.
And even the Commanders are all just Virginia fans. Like I don't.
Sure.
Like some
Because why would you
Maryland
travel
too,
to that
but, like-
stadium? Why would
Yeah.
why would you want to go there?
Why would you root for the Commanders? That's what I want to know. Like, why would you
I don't.
imagine rooting for Dan Snyder?
Yeah. Yeah. So big picture, Lakers stand pat. Like if this was 2 weeks ago and AD was still playing the way he was, yeah, I would say probably try and make some trades to
Fine.
put better pieces around AD. But if he's out for a month or potentially more than that, the season's over. Like it's okay to accept that early so that you can just turn this into development time.
And who knows? Like you might get some players that develop that end up like being potential trade pieces if they look
Right,
good and
which-
flash. So like
I was on Matt Moderno's Believe in Wizards podcast yesterday, and we talked about how bad the Wizards always are at that, where when they never seem to realize that a season is lost. And so they never turn that into development time for young guys. They keep playing vets until game 82.
and then you're
and
38
then those
and
young guys
43.
Don't develop. And so they're not good players on the Wizards, but they're also not good trade assets because nobody wants a 24-year-old whose highest average is 9.5 points per game.
Yep.
Yeah, it's
Well,
depressing.
we could
It's
talk
not
about
great.
one of our teams that are doing well.
Let's please talk about one of our teams that are doing well. Let's talk about the Nets. Fancy
Yeah,
Nets.
91
they're on an
points and a
incredible
half.
streak.
That's like, I think that's the most and a half
Third
the
most.
Wizards by the Nets, third most all time and a half. And yeah, it was against the Warriors and James Wiseman was literally their best player, but I think that's impressive against any NBA team. I just think, I want to see, like we discussed, the Nets do this against the contenders in the East, the big dogs, which is the Bucks and the Celtics, which I think they play the Bucks, if not their next game, like coming up soon. Because I know they have like a stretch of like the Warriors, Bucks, and maybe Celtics, which would be nice.
They have. I actually have this on my phone because later on we'll talk about our League Pass teams, and this can't be one because they've got multiple on NBA TV. But
Yeah.
Brooklyn has the Bucks, the Cavs, and the Hawks in their next 3 games.
There you
So
go.
that's two top of the East teams and a mid-level like fringe contender.
Kind of sucks.
Those 3 games
Hawks.
are really big for the Nets to show what kind of team they are.
I mean, if they go 2-1 and then one loss is like a game where KD misses a game winner, like I still think that looks good on the Nets. I mean, again, it's like they have to stretch it 7 games. They still like TJ Warren still hasn't played too many games yet. He's played like 7 games with the team. Ben hasn't really gotten back to where he was in the beginning of season when he was showing flashes. I mean, but Kyrie's done well, stayed out of the news headlines, which is great.
He's not saying shit.
Not saying, besides his regular like astrology shit, I guess he hasn't tweeted anything that crazy.
Well, I mean, when Mercury's in retrograde, like you got to tweet about it.
Well, yeah, of course.
You can't not tweet about it.
But just Jacque Vaughn has these guys playing together. I mean, you saw against the Raptors, like again, it's the Raptors and the Raptors aren't playing that well, but just like the energy that they had for each other, like they all understand, even from Kyrie, that like, it's KD, he's the main dog there, and everyone else is just like trying to fill their role. Kyrie is, even as we talked about with Trae Young not doing, but played more off ball, has been trying on defense, which he is the guy you want to switch to, but he's been giving the effort, which you look at the Warriors, like Steph Curry's their weakest link on defense when they were like last year they won the title, but if you give effort, know your assignments, you're not that much of a minus on defense. And they're playing well. Royce and O'Neal's like back from injury. Like they're finally all the pieces getting together are clicking now. And I think they like playing under Jacque Vaughn. He holds them accountable. It seems like way more structured. And yeah, again, it's the Nets. So I'm saying this today, tomorrow, Christmas weekend, there could be some religious thing that Kyrie needs to tweet about and then get all up in the news for something like that.
It's not Thanksgiving, so I don't think he has the same level of beef with it.
Yeah,
Christmas. Yeah, it does seem like a Kyrie thing to say something about
Christmas for the colonizers.
Just being a Grinch. Yeah.
But to me, I just think they're a ticking time bomb. Like I'm willing to take the entire history of the KD Kyrie Nets over this 13 game sample. Is kind of is where I'm at. And like, I mean, yeah, they've gone 12-1 over 13 games, which is good. I looked it up. The best team that they played with a winning record was Portland, who they beat. The one team they played with the winning record outside of that was the Celtics, who they lost to. Which like you can only play on your what?
Close game though, right? They lost by like 6.
I don't remember. I didn't look at the final score. I just saw that they lost.
I think it was like a 6-point loss. Like it came down to the wire a little bit.
Yeah, and that's the case. But like, and you can only play on your schedule. So I'm not saying like, well, we actually should be like, this is a bad thing that they're beating the teams. To me, it just doesn't mean anything to me yet. And like you talk about like, well, TJ Warren's only played 7 games. Well, I haven't seen TJ Warren since the bubble.
Yeah,
and like Ben Simmons has done this even pre-meltdown against the Hawks. Like he had roller coaster regular seasons his entire time with the Sixers. Like he would show flashes where you're like, oh, like he put up 42 against the Jazz the one year they were the 1 seed. And it's like, oh, maybe Ben Simmons is, but then he just like, he's always done this. He can never consistently play or make improvements.
He's not as consistent as his right-handed jumper or his hook shot. That's the only thing he shoots is his right-handed hook shots.
And I just
never
think
shoots with his left hand unless it's a jumper. But
unless it's a free
well,
throw.
I mean, why have a left hand if you're that good with your right?
And like to me, I just think they're running Kevin Durant to the. It's like the same thing that happened last year. Like they came back. He came back from injury.
Same thing that we've seen happen.
I
even
will
on
say,
a couple of those OKC teams, we've seen them do this, 4 or 5 times in history where they just run Kevin Durant into the ground.
I think he started out as having insane minutes, and I do think that like Jacque Vaughn actually does have some say in his minutes. Like he sits a lot of third quarters, and then if they've been taking care of games, which they do, like he doesn't play as much or comes in around like the 6-minute mark in the fourth quarter. So, I mean, like I do think he plays crazy minutes. He's 34 years old. You never want a guy 34 years old leading the league in minutes and like, beating a shitty team, a Magic team by like 4 points. It's like, was he really worth it? Like, are they even a good team if it takes this much of an effort from Kevin Durant to do this? But I think the more guys that they've gotten back, like Yuta was out, I think 18 games. And he's come back and played really well. Like, Patty Mills isn't even in the rotation right now. I really like Sumner. Like, I think Cam Thomas, like, I think he could be another guy that maybe on another team where he could develop more would be a more dangerous scorer. But like Sumner's got energy, he drives, he's got the size, he's not much of a minus on defense, and he was like one of their better players in that Pacers win where it was just like the whole Nets bench with like Markieff Morris out there playing, and they still beat the Pacers, who were kind of on a roll at the time. But I mean, we'll just see. Like, obviously, injuries here or there, they have to survive the whole 82 game season. This is just a really good stretch for them. I want to see the ebbs and flows of a regular good team come from the Nets instead of like just
psychotic,
hey,
yeah.
looking pretty good and like crash and burn, like, you know, fucking don't tweet a swastika on Christmas or something like that. Just like that's the only thing that could tear it down.
Well,
now,
only
but...
because Hanukkah's during Christmas this year. Otherwise, it's fine.
Don't be like the New York Times tweeting a swastika puzzle.
Oh my God.
On the,
God,
on the
I saw that. It's not the
I
first
forgot
time they've
about-
done it. It's not the
forgot
first
about
time
that.
they've done it.
It's so
Oh,
bad.
NYT, what are we doing?
Yeah, not a good look. But yeah, I'm having a good time. I'm excited for them to play like premier opponents though. I think that'll be a real test. Is can they stymie a run? Can they actually hold a lead against one of the better teams? And you know, like again,
How do they do
teams,
against
I
elite
think,
guards? I want to see how they do against
yeah.
against
Literally the
coming up this
Cavs.
week.
The
Donovan
Cavs, the
Mitchell.
Cavs is
yeah.
What
Donovan
do you do against
Mitchell-
Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland when you're Kyrie Irving and you're whoever's running with him at any point in the game? Yeah, your forwards might be better if you're the Nets, but if their guards are dropping 60 combined points, like they're going to be running you ragged.
Well, and is Jared Allen playing for the Cavs? Is he like healthy right now? Because I know
He wasn't. I don't know if he's back or not.
Yeah,
I know
don't
he's a
if
guy
he
that's
is.
always kind of hurt, but like, I mean, with Evan Mobley, like that's the thing. The Cavs are deep, not only in their backcourt but in their front court. So it's like, I think they are one of the teams where like you probably won't see them double KD. Like I think they do have defenders that can stick with them to an extent.
I honestly, I think the Cavs, on the Cavs side of things, match up better with the Nets than the Bucks do. I think the Bucks are the best team of the lot, but I think the Cavs present more matchup problems because the Bucks have already committed 4 years in a row now to being like, we're just going to leave the 3-point line open, and if you make your threes, you'll beat us. So try and make your threes.
So Grant Williams will win a game 7.
Yeah, I don't know if continuing to do that against the Celtics and Nets is the right course of action because there's a lot of shooters on these teams.
Yeah, I mean, KD is literally shooting a 67% true shooting percentage, 57 from twos. Like him shooting jumpers is greater than Shaq's like best season in the post, which is
He's having
kind
an
of
incredible.
insane right
He's
now.
having an incredible year. Did you see
Incredible
the did you? I don't know if it was tweets or articles or whatever, where they basically said no matter what, unless this team finishes with the 1 seed, there is no way that Kevin Durant is going to win MVP because the NBA media has already essentially decided that he's not going to win. Like I don't want to do this thing to you specifically because I know how you get about like the Cowboys being hated on by the league, but like because of off-court shit, NBA media has already kind of said Kevin Durant cannot be the MVP.
Well, I was just gonna say,
which
I
is
think
kind of crazy
when players like have that much of a power dynamic over the owners. I think there is that. Like that's why do you think Harden got snubbed so many times? And then even if he were to have like a season, like let's say the Nets held it together or whatever, and Harden was the main guy there, I don't think they're going to give it to him because he forced his way out of Houston. Like they just don't like the way that looks in the league. And I think that they do hold a grudge. I mean, human beings are running all this shit still.
Sure.
Like,
yeah.
It's going to happen. Like people have their biases. Like there's definitely an influence. Like it might not.
You've got
be the
people that have
result, but
openly
yeah.
said they vote based on narratives more than they vote based on court behavior.
Yeah. I mean, literally,
Ramona Shelburne has said it
yeah.
multiple times where she says she votes based on narratives, and like that's not how sports are supposed. Like that's not how these awards affect people's money.
Yeah,
especially like the All NBA stuff, like that. I think is where it's in the
things that entitle you to a supermax are being voted on by people that vote on narratives,
and that's the bullshit too. Where it's like, yeah, like for NFL and like Pro Bowls when it's like fan voting, but then like in their contract so that in like the CBA it makes it so that if you make a Pro Bowl you make that much more, or you're like eligible. I think for NBA players too, it's like all NBAs are then eligible for super maxes or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So,
If to get your supermax, you have to be on the team that you were drafted by, or they have to have your bird rights, and you have to be either all defense, all NBA, and like basically any of the big awards that basically say you're a top 15 player in the league.
Yeah.
That's how you get it. And like part of the reason is that there's people that are probably being voted on for that may not necessarily be deserving of it, but they have a better narrative behind them. But then there's other guys that are not getting it because maybe they're in a small market, or maybe they're not well liked by the media, or maybe
the Celtics are like,
guy.
please not Jaylen Brown. Please not Jaylen Brown.
Yeah.
We don't want to pay him a supermax.
Yeah. Well, it'll be up to some other team to pay him. Somebody will get his bird rights.
Somebody will pay him.
Someone will pay him.
Yeah, he's very good.
I honestly hope it's not the Celtics, because I don't want him and Jason Tatum to
they're
be
both
the tandem,
so freaking good.
the tandem of the future, when they've already been to the conference finals like 4 times.
And they're
in
like in a 5-year career. Yeah, I'm with you. We got it.
Does it hurt that Lonzo was taken ahead of Jason Tatum?
Yeah, it does. I mean, it was frustrating at even though I liked Lonzo coming out of college, and I honestly didn't have like an incredible view of Jason Tatum. I thought Jason Tatum made more sense in terms of his physical gifts and what like his projection was. I thought the whole like Lonzo is going to be the next Magic Johnson shit was always bullshit.
Yeah.
Like, Magic Johnson is the only Magic Johnson. If anybody's the next Magic Johnson, it was LeBron James, and Lonzo does not compare to LeBron James. Yeah. So I hated, again, the narrative that was painted around him to justify that pick. I was not a Fultz guy, though, so I will say that I was.
Yeah, I mean, like
I was heavily reality, out on Fultz.
If the Celtics wouldn't have traded the pick if they didn't know that Tatum was going to get back to them, like they were going to take him number 1. I'm fully confident that they were going to take him number 1. So like that, and I'll admit I loved Fultz. Like I was all in on Fultz coming out.
I like Fultz a lot. I just, when I look at the 3 of those guys, Fultz was not a number 1 pick to me. And I know like part of that is probably me changing things in my brain looking back then. But even at the time, I was just like, I didn't necessarily see him being, I saw him being an all-star. I never saw him being like an MVP talent. And during that draft, it was like, which one of these guys can be a future MVP? Clearly, Jason Tatum's the one.
Even before the Sixers traded for him, I thought Fultz was going to be incredible. Like I was all in on Fultz, and I hated Tatum. So there's like multiple L's to take in that draft. I was not a Tatum guy. I thought he was like, I thought he was so polished coming out that his room. I didn't think he had this much room to improve. Basically,
right. Yeah.
But
yeah, I mean, he kind of had a little bit of the inverse of the Giannis improvement, where Giannis was like such an incredibly raw guy, but like you could see where his physical gifts were going to grow. Whereas Tatum kind of had a little bit of like Paolo Banchero, where he came out and you were like, yeah, polished. This guy is like he's a little bit of a finished product. And to an extent that was true. But then Tatum was like, but I also want to be Giannis, and I want to be the most stacked dude on this court. And turns out I've got way more athleticism that I haven't discovered yet. And
he can drive.
He even got taller.
Yeah.
Like,
he can go to the
guy
rim
was 20
on
and he got taller.
It's
and he's drawing contact now, which he never used to do. Like he used to love to fade.
I mean,
watching him play,
he's gigantic.
Like, fuck, they call a foul every time Tatum drives, and it's like, well, it is a foul. Like he literally beats the man, and they have no choice but to put contact on him. And he's good at leaning into the contact and finishing, because he's got like freakishly long arms too. Like I am definitely. I thought he would get a little better, but not this much better already, to the point where he's like.
This is like where I expected him to be, maybe for 1 year in his late 20s. I didn't expect him to be at this point. What is he, 24? 25?
Like, I mean, I think he's already kind of surpassed what Paul 17? George is.
Yeah.
He literally went to a finals.
But that's a good comp. But also, Paul George, he lost that amount of time because of the broken leg. And he was never the same player afterwards.
And he could never be LeBron.
But Paul George, there was a noticeable dip in how he played the game and the athleticism post leg break.
Yeah.
And he broke it in such a fucking terrible way.
Yeah, that was
But just as a guy that I think I guess Jimmy Butler made the finals too. So but I'd rather have Jimmy Tatum at any point than Jimmy Butler's career. But just like guys that have like made that step to take a team to the finals that can be the number 1 on your team and a guy that you can build around. Like he's 24. Like the joke was always like Jason Tatum is like 16 years old. Jason Tatum's an infant and still doing
just talking
stuff.
Over each other, making that joke to each other. Yeah. I mean, look, when he's done being a fetus, the guy's going to be really good at basketball. All right.
Well,
Let's
Fuck the
let's
Celtics.
yeah, fuck the Celtics. Absolutely. This
Yeah.
is I will say there's not a lot that we like across the board agree on. This is 100% a fuck the Celtics
Yeah.
show.
100%. Yes.
Yeah, we are not part of the Boston media, like New England, like Northeast, whatever. Fuck that shit.
You know that Leprechaun is racist. You know it's
Lucky?
racist. Like, yeah.
That's why Kyrie
who was
stomped
it that
on it.
stepped on? Kyrie stepped on
It's
him, right?
Kyrie, yeah.
Best
Yeah.
thing Kyrie's ever done. Best thing he's ever done.
Ugh.
If he did shit like that more often, I'd be like, yeah, I don't know, guys. Maybe vaccines aren't all they're cracked
Yeah.
up to be.
My favorite part of that was like Kendrick Perkins acting like it was his grandma that he stepped on.
Yeah.
My God.
God, Perk is exhausting.
Oh, I can't. We don't. Yeah, that's a.
Yeah,
separate
we don't need to get
conversation.
into the hot take media. To a small extent, I guess. I would love to be the hot take media because those guys get fucking paid.
Yeah,
but
you just say
that's neither-
stupid stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, neither here nor there. Let's wrap it up. Let's talk about our Game Pass teams of the week. Modai, did you have anyone that immediately sprang to mind?
I'll be honest. I didn't look it up, so no.
Sure. Okay. Ferentinos, anybody that you were interested in watching? I see you literally scoring the schedule right now. Let me tell. I'll give
Yeah.
you a minute.
Well, you know,
I'll
I
tell
think
you.
it's a good team to see. Oh, well, you could go first then, I guess.
Well,
Yeah.
no, because I don't want you to say the Nets because again, I brought up. The
I'm not
Nets
going to say
earlier.
the Nets. I don't try to pick the Nets as a team to watch because I'm already going to watch them.
I was going to say the Nets, and then I went through their schedule. They're on NBA TV for 2 of those 3 games coming up, so they kind of can't be our League Pass team of the week. Instead, I went with San Antonio, who is not that good of a
Hey.
team, but is a super fucking interesting team to watch night in and night out. They've got the Pelicans, they've got the Magic, they've got the Jazz, and they've got the Thunder. So it's a lot of people that are, obviously New Orleans is the best of that lot. Jazz are pretty good. Thunder kind of suck, but they suck again in an interesting way. And the Magic are just like making these wins happen on the back of the Wagners and on Paolo and just like
Yeah, Wagner had a big game against the Celtics, right? When they
Back to
won.
back against the Celtics,
Yeah.
right? Then they
yeah,
went back to
they
back.
went back to back against them. And I was like, all right, I mean, like this team might win 25 games at most, but they're fucking fun to watch. They play really hard, and Banchero does shit on the court that somebody his age should not be legally allowed to do. Like he's
Right, future
so
Magic.
fucking good.
And just as like his physical presence too, like he just looks like an
He came out
NBA veteran
with an
already.
NBA body.
Yeah.
He's faster, stronger, bigger, has a better first step. He's got a better handle, and he can shoot better than most of these guys. And he's a year out of college. He's not even a year out of college. He's half a year out of college.
Yeah.
He's incredible. Oh, I've never said this in my life, ever in my life, but right now I wish I was a Magic fan.
Huh. I
Which is-
honestly, I think the excitement of a bad young team is better than what Ferentinos and I are going through as, and all 3 of us. Like
It
as
has to be the
Lakers,
title, basically, where it's like,
Yeah.
or
and
nothing.
everything is so stressful.
Or
and
an 8 seed. Or an 8 seed.
yeah.
The 8
Yeah.
seed is our title.
Part of that is my process upbringing as a basketball fan with the
Sure.
Sixers, but like a young fun team, there's nothing more fun to root for than like a young exciting team. That's bad.
That's when the Nats blew it all up over the past couple years, and they traded. Obviously they didn't re-sign Bryce, and then we won the World Series, so that year doesn't count. But then we didn't bring back Rendon, and then we traded Scherzer
Trey
and Trey,
Turner.
and then we traded Soto, and like the only guy left from that old thing is
Strasburg.
and Robles. And all these people, and I'm still like crushed by it. All these people were like, okay, I'm not going to watch a Nats game for the next 5 years. I watched last year probably 130 Nats games, and
Ugh.
next year I will probably watch 130 Nats games, and the year after that,
Torture.
I'll probably watch 140 Nats games because I like to watch them when they're bad, so that I can find the guys that I really like, so I can start thinking about the trade possibilities, so I can build this love of these young players so that when they are going to the playoffs, it's not the first time that I've seen them play. And it's the same thing with basketball. Like I like watching the bad teams because in 5 years, like look at SGA when he came into the league.
Mhm.
He was a fucking average ass player who's now going to be an all NBA player if they give him his flowers.
I'll say
get
the
done.
Thunder is that like perpetual like
Bright future.
team groomer or player groomer where they make them so good and then they just go to another team when they are done. Or
Yeah, we don't
I mean
use
the
the
one
word groomer on
chance
this
they
podcast.
had,
But
they're
yeah.
but
Yeah, they're great at developing talent, and they're great at giving young guys who may potentially be ruled out by the rest of the league an opportunity to do that. So, like, yeah, you might not win a title as a Thunder fan. You might. You also
You might.
might.
You also
But
might.
you're also going to constantly set yourself up for the potential of winning a title in like a 5 to 6 year span, which so many other teams aren't going to do.
So I'm gonna go to my Game Pass team of the week, the Washington Wizards.
Fuck off.
Their next two games are against the Utah Jazz and the Sacramento Kings, which are two playoff teams in the West that are pretty exciting to watch.
Right, and if you're a fan of the Jazz or you're a fan of the
games.
Kings, those are good teams to watch. They're gonna fucking smash our dicks into the dirt. Actually, honestly, I think they'll lose to the Kings. I think they'll beat the Jazz. Kelly Olynyk's out right now. The Wizards, outside of like DeLon Wright and Rui Hachimura, are finally healthy. They should have their big three in the game, just in terms of like being able to have a 20-point per game scorer on the court at any given time. The Wizards should win this game. They might not, but they should. And they're not favored to do so. So like, don't bet on them.
Yeah, I was gonna say the Jazz are like 6.5.
Jazz were 8.5 this morning when I looked. So
8.5.
God.
Jeez.
I think that's weighted too. I mean, like, I don't want to say that though, because you guys are gonna fucking call me out for it when the Wizards lose by 70. But I think 8.5 is a little bit too much for the amount of offense the Wizards can have sometimes.
Wonder if it's like playing in Utah's part of it.
I'm sure it is. They're one of the harder teams to travel to.
Yeah.
It's tough when you got all those Mormons wearing their button downs under their jerseys, just staring at you from the side.
Yeah, that's what it's that, and it's not like the elevation at all.
Yeah, that's what I was referring to.
It's the weird Mormon staring at you.
I mean, that's what freaked me out. I think that's why Mitchell left.
Yes, according to him, that's true.
Jazz,
All
they
right.
should have to change their name, by the way. I know that's probably something.
Utah
to talk about,
Jazz.
but, like,
I think New Orleans should be the Jazz.
that's literally
Yeah,
an
Utah can be
oxymoron,
like
the
the
Utah Jazz.
Utah, like Onyx or something like
The
that.
Utah
What's another
Missionaries.
name for white that isn't white? Onyx. Yeah, let's say Onyx.
Just call them the Utes.
That's a thing already.
Yeah, I know. The college.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean,
that'd
whatever.
be so confusing.
Well, people figure it out.
Will they? I don't know. I don't know how big the Jazz fan base is, but neither here nor there. Those are questions for the expansion era. Once we start getting,
They could be the
Seattle team and
Utah.
the Vegas
They
team.
could be the Utah Pelicans, and they'll be the New Orleans Jazz.
Just trade.
Yeah.
Does Utah have like bodies of water? I guess Salt Lake, but Pelicans
Yeah.
probably don't hang
The
out.
salty Pelicans
Yeah.
and the New
Ugh.
Orleans Jazz.
That sounds like a gross sex move, like a rusty trombone. Okay. On that note,
On that note.
let's get out of here. We gave our league pass teams of the week. Maybe Modi will have one next week. He's
Maybe
the
I'll
one
do
who
my
put it on
work.
the outline, so
No, no, I didn't touch that. That's always on there.
that's always on there. Okay. All right. Well, maybe we'll have one next week. Got the Wizards. Got whoever the fuck I said, San Antonio.
San Antonio.
Thank you guys for watching. Appreciate you tuning in. I know this one went a little bit off the rails, particularly during my rants about the Wizards and Lakers and, just like my emotions in general. But if you're still watching and you've enjoyed the pod, please click the like button. Please comment below. If you have anything you want us to cover. I know, Elliot, I'm going to say right now, we said we were going to talk about the Raptors today.
Oh,
sent us a
Siakam got
bunch of stuff
52
to talk
points or
about.
something. Yeah, that was a
we
good
didn't
game.
do it. We didn't do it. We forgot to do it. We had a lot to talk about. We will talk about them next week because I think there's a lot of interesting trade possibilities for them. And I'm committing us to that now. We will talk about the Raptors next week. But yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching. Click the subscribe button, and we will see you next time.
Pro America here giving it a show.
God damn it.